Inside Baseball on FanCred. John Heyman and I are here to answer any questions that you may have in the world of baseball, or if you have anything else that you want to ask us. This is totally interactive, so please put your comments below. Our producer will read them over, get them to us, and if you want to join us live, which is what we're hoping that you want to do, you go to the FanCred app. So download that if it's not already downloaded. You're going to hit the fan line button. It's in the top right corner. That will bring you to a little green room where you'll chat with our producer, and then hopefully you can come on and ask us whatever question that you have. So we're here to talk the latest and the greatest in the world of baseball, and we're hoping to hear from you. We have some awesome guests here this week, so I'm so excited for them to join us, and we'll see at what point throughout the show they will be coming on. But Scott Boras is here, which, I mean, who doesn't want to talk and pick Scott Boras's mind? Very excited about that. And then Miguel Montero, too, former Cubs, Diamondbacks catcher. John, I know you have a really good relationship with him, so I can't wait to see what's going to come out of that conversation. But first, everyone knows trade deadline just went down. There's winners, there's losers. John, you and I were just talking. You think there are way more winners than losers in this one. I want to start with the number one team that you think did the best, and that is the Los Angeles Dodgers. So obviously getting Manny Machado, Brian Dozier, John Axford. Why did you pick them as your number one winner?
Well, they had the big deal. Getting Manny Machado just increased their offense tenfold. I mean, he's a terrific player, very versatile shortstop, third baseman, one of the best 2 or 3 third basemen in the game, one of the better hitters in the game. They added Brian Dozier, who's a terrific second-half player. Axford does help the bullpen. I guess the question would be, do they have enough pitching? They always have depth, but you never know with all the injuries they've had to Stripling and all the others. Every team's got some questions, but I mean, you add Manny Machado, to me, you got to be first on that list. But I had a lot of winners, a lot of big winners, some smaller winners. Those are winners with questions to go, and just a few losers.
I like that there's smaller winners. It's always fun to categorize them. Now, you mentioned the pitching with the Dodgers. Is there a concern there? I mean, do they have enough to be, the top contenders in the NL right now?
Well, Kershaw's got to stay healthy. Healthy, he's one of the best 3 or 4 pitchers in the game, maybe the best if he's really at full health. So that's huge. Stripling, if he's on the DL just for a little while, as we suspect that he will be, that'll be a big plus for them as well. Obviously, he made the All-Star team. They've got potential of Ryu coming back. So, I mean, they definitely have the talent. They've had guys on the DL, though, so there are questions there. Hill's very good, too. So, the Dodgers are a major, major threat in the National League. I like the Dodgers and the Cubs right now as the best teams, but, boy, Milwaukee's pretty good. And Atlanta, Philadelphia, they've done a nice job, too. So, there's about 7 or 8 teams in the National League right now that can take it. And they all have very similar records, too. So, very, very competitive in the National League.
Another team that you thought was at the top of the list, we're going over to the AL now, is the New York Yankees, obviously getting Happ, Britton, Lance Lynn, just to name a few. Overall, what did you take away from their trade deadline and their last month? Yeah,
they did great work. I think slightly earlier. They didn't go to the deadline. They got Happ and they got Britton before the deadline. Lynn also the day before. The deadline day, they kind of just rearranged deck chairs. But to get 2 starters, to get that depth, they have solid pitching. That may be good enough with that lineup. Once Judge is back, once they have Frazier, once they have Sanchez going, they may be good enough. Boston's been absolutely fantastic. They've been the best team in baseball. I do think Boston is going to hang on and win that division, but I love what the Yankees did. That bullpen was a strength, but they made it even better with Britton, and that rotation right now looks very solid. With Happ, he's on the DL for a little bit. He's the second New York pitcher to go on with hand, foot, and mouth disease. Who would believe that? But Noah Syndergaard came off quickly, and we expect Happ. I shouldn't laugh about it, but it's kind of an unusual ailment at this stage in 2018. But he's a very, very good pitcher. Left-hander who strikes out, AL East pedigree. So I think that Brian Cashman did a very nice job as well. In fact, all 5 AL East teams were on my big winner list, so I thought they all did fantastic.
We're going to get to more of that list shortly, but first I want to intro our first guest. We are so excited to be joined by Scott Boras on the fan line. So Scott, I know, is out in LA right now and is taking time out of his very, very busy schedule to join us here on Inside Baseball. So, Scott, when you are ready, hello there. How are you?
I'm walking through the hollows of Dodger Stadium trying to find a spot. I think I finally found one, but in LA, you always worry about earthquakes, so we're down buried in the bottom of Dodger Stadium. All right.
You're safe. You're safe where you are. Thank you so much for joining us. I love that you are down there in Dodger Stadium right now. So, who are you out there watching?
The Brewers, the Dodgers are. They've had 3 pretty good games here so far, and so the Brewers have really improved themselves at the trade deadline, and Moustakas is playing at very high levels for them, and so the Dodgers got Dozier, and he had a great game yesterday, so both teams are quite competitive.
We're a few days removed from the trade deadline. How insane is that time period for you?
You know, a lot of your clients, particularly your veteran clients, are very concerned. They hear a lot of rumors. They hear a lot of things. A lot of the journalists are speculating, and so you're constantly on the phone for about a 48 to 72 hour period, basically letting them know that what the journalists are saying is not accurate.
John, that's you.
Yeah, I know. Good one, a very good one, Scott. We really appreciate your sense of humor there. One piece of speculation, though, that was very interesting this trade deadline was regarding Bryce Harper. And there were stories out there that the Nats were very upset about the way the season has gone in total, not him, but with the team. And they would even consider potentially moving him. I know that I don't normally reveal what people tell me, but in that period, I texted you a couple times, and your only response was, ha ha. You really weren't believing these rumors very well, I don't think. What do you think, looking back on it at all? Did they really consider trading Bryce Harper? Was that ever a possibility in your mind and in his mind? Was he concerned at all with the rumors? Because they were out there.
Well, if I'm a general manager on another team, I'm going to create a trade package, and I'm going to call Mike Rizzo. And I'm going to say, I think I can improve my team. Here's what I'm willing to give you. That has nothing to do with what the Nationals' point of view is or what their process is. Obviously, they'll take the phone call. I think it's custom and practice for any GM to do things in a vision that if a maybe may happen. And whether or not there's any intent on the part of a club to trade a player, that certainly doesn't prevent the teams from moving forward and aggressively approaching the Nationals about their interest in a player that they think helps them.
Scott, I wanted to ask you one more question about Bryce Harper. We all know that this winter is one of the biggest free agent bonanzas going, with potential of Clayton Kershaw. We certainly have a Machado and Harper as going to be free agents. I mean, I think that's fair to say at this point. How are you approaching things? Obviously, he seems to be on the right track right now. His batting average isn't what it usually is. He's certainly hitting for power. He's certainly getting on base. How do you look at it right now? I think we're assuming he's going to be a free agent. He still could go back to Washington. Obviously, they love him. He likes it there. We know that the record is $325 million. That Giancarlo Stanton got $325 million. There are a lot of executives now saying we don't want to give this huge deal to anybody. Where do you think Bryce fits in with the past major contracts?
Well, I don't want to speak specifically, but with any free agent, you always are hopeful that they're approaching their free agent season with health, and that you're able to see their skill level perform at levels that everyone knows will continue for years to come. And so the biggest concern is that in the normal scope and course of play, that the player remains healthy as the season goes forward. When you're a really young free agent and you're in the marketplace, for me, which I think is unique to a guy like Bryce, is that when you look at all sports, is that the character of a player, the intensity of a player, the discipline of a player. Harp is someone off the field that he's a family man.
We might have lost Scott. We'll
Maybe
see.
there. I hope it wasn't.
Oh, there he is.
He's very committed to who he is as an athlete and as a teammate. And certainly going forward, it's very rare in sport that you get talents at the optimum level at a young age that have that foundation, have that great stability about them. And for me, for any business decision, where you're headed, what you're doing, going forward, and you're an owner, and you're going to make commitments for a lot of years, you certainly want to know that if you have a superstar talent that has that kind of foundation and character, it really lends to something that you don't often see in professional sports.
Do you see teams, as John just mentioned, it seems like teams are moving away from the bigger, longer contracts and going more towards, shorter, maybe a little bit more money. What do you think this offseason will bring in terms of that?
Well, I am not here to paint paintings that are belong to the decision of the painter, and anything along those lines obviously will come in time, and I'm sure Bryce will let me know what his approach will be in those areas.
I have an interesting question for you. You were mentioning how so much of what you do is managing, whether it's players reaching out to you saying, what's going on? I'm hearing these rumors, or it's media reaching out to you saying, is this actually happening or not? What would you say is the most difficult aspect of your job?
Well, the unknowns of a trading deadline are always difficult because the clubs are transacting what they're doing. They don't really want anyone to know that but their team. And the players are looking for definition. And the clubs that are seeking the players don't want anyone to know who they're seeking. So you're in this bubble, and then you have the media speculating, as they should, as to what they think the probability of it is happening. And what I best do is I go back and I keep a record of all the prognostications by the media, and we've determined that it is an 8% valid factor. So roughly 8% of what you're going to hear is going to be actually happen. So that's about the best statistic I've come up with it's the MV quotient, media validity. So that's the MVQ that I give to players.
There's analytics for everything these days. I really appreciate that, Scott. One thing I wanted to ask you about was last winter, people on the players' side, the union, were very upset about the teams that were supposedly tanking or not trying, or they were non-competitive. And there were 4 teams that were cited by the union, Pittsburgh, Oakland, Tampa Bay, and Florida. And 3 of those teams are actually winning. They actually have winning records this year. Do you think that's a fluke? Do you think other teams are now going to emulate this? And is this a concern at all that 3 out of these 4 teams with low payroll? Now, the team with the highest payroll, Boston, is the best team, but 3 out of the 4 teams that were said to be tanking are actually winning this year.
Well, I think the issue was as to the impact on the right structure, not on the viability of winning and losing. Is that when you have a commissioner in the past that talked about the hope and faith of baseball, is that you want clubs that are using the collective bargaining agreement and the good faith commitment to free agency, and that you're using that to say, this is how we're going to acquire and work within the structure. Because remember, players are giving up a reserve, a right for 6 years to say that I will give you that in bargaining, provided I will get the right of free agency, which is protected for me. And going forward, we have to make sure that that good faith negotiated element is that bargain for exchange has a resolve. And the resolve has to be that that free agent right is not liquidated. It is not in any way diluted. And what we had happen was we had a foreign player come to the market, which slowed the free agent market for 30 days because you had a $300 million player being purchased for $8 million, and every team wanted it. You had 7 all-star players being removed from clubs to go to other teams with control. Therefore, they were not looking at free agents. So we basically had a free agent market that was not looked at until the middle or late February. And that is not what was bargained for, and certainly not something that was intended by the prior commissioner when they bargained the free agent rights of today's CBA.
I know that you are big in public speaking and giving a lot of lectures. So before we let you go, because I know you have a game to go focus on, what would be your best piece of advice, whether it be for a young player or a student that's watching you in a lecture? What's your number one piece of advice for folks out there?
I think a lot of people are told by a lot of their mentors what they're good at through academic exercise or athletic exercise, through their performance at a young age. But my main theme is be guarded. Don't do something that you're necessarily good at. Do something that you're passionate and good at. And if you don't have the passion to do something that even you're good at it, I think it's going to have really an impact on your life, what you do, how you go forward. And so if you can really define what you're passionate about, and as soon as that comes, and it may come late rather than early in your life, that I would show great restraint before I commit to what I'm doing until I really define that internal fire that leads me to doing something that I wake up every day and say, I'm really happy to do what I do. Because I think it really takes you to the place that makes life most pleasing and tranquil for a person.
Scott, clear. Oh, yeah. You go right ahead, John.
One more on Bryce Harper while we have a chance here. You have a chance. It looks like we're looking at the Dodger Hall of Fame behind you. I don't know if you're a member of the Dodger Hall of Fame. Now, obviously, Bryce Harper was not traded, and we had speculation about that. Washington did end up trading a player. They ended up cutting a player. They seem to be playing better now. I wanted to ask you just generally Harper's relationship in Washington. I know there's concern. Is there a chance that they could keep him? Obviously, he's going to go out on the free agent market at this point, but is there anything you could say to people in Washington to make them feel better? I was there for the All-Star game. We were all there for the All-Star game. It was a fantastic, festive, and quite a victory for Bryce in the home run competition. Is there anything you could say to the people in Washington as Bryce is about to become a free agent?
Again, I think Bryce's words are the ones that speak most loudly to this. And during the home run derby, he had some very emotional and complimentary statements to the fans in Washington, how he felt about his time in Washington and his relationship with the ownership and the fan base. And I think it was very clear that he's enjoyed his time there. And obviously in decision making and going forward, I'm sure that Bryce and the Nationals will, as they always have discussions. And I think for both of them, it's going to be a decision that each of them has their own reasons for the direction they'll take. But in the end, I do know this. I think that all the conversations they do have are welcome. The relationship has been good since day one. And I think the city of Washington, D.C. and the entire D.C. area for Bryce has been a very welcomed part of his life. And I think that, certainly his focus is on winning and bringing this team back to where he expects us to be, and that is in the playoffs. And so these types of thoughts I don't think are at the forefront of Washington's mind or Bryce's mind right now, but I do know that they have a very good relationship.
Last one on the Nats, if I could. Steven Strasburg, he's a key player for this team. Is there anything you could say right now about his status and when we think he'll be back for the Nats? They seem to be on track right now. They seem to have gotten their act back together. But I think to really make inroads in that division and win it, they're going to have Strasburg back.
Yes, Steven had treatment for an inflamed nerve, and he is working through that now. I don't know exactly the time frame. That's something that he and the medical staff will kind of direct us on. But we do know that there's certainly a potential for him to be back and be a big part of the pennant race for the Nationals.
All right. Well, Scott, thank you so much for joining us. I hope you enjoy the game there tonight, and we really appreciate it. I'm sure we'll be very lucky to have you on Inside Baseball once again at some point. So thank you, Scott.
Just so you both know, I was able to get this room on the basis of the fact that they now have to clean the windows, which is the only reason I was allowed this room. So
whatever works.
All right. Talk to you. Bye-bye.
I hope that's not true. I think he was kidding about that.
I love that. So what's your relationship like with Boras? I think that people always wonder what the media relationship is like with, some of the top agents and how you get the scoop and how that all works out.
Well, with all these agents, we know them all very well, especially someone who's been doing it 20, 30 years like Ken Rosenthal and myself. And we've had our moments with all of them. There's no question about it. Because there are times when the media goal conflicts with the agent goal. So there are moments, but he is very cooperative in terms of getting on here with us. You got to give him credit for that and finding a room in that. Look, what a beautiful stadium, but he seems to have found the bottom of it somehow. The Dodger Stadium is amazing to me still. It's about almost as old as I am. And it looks fantastic, and it is a fantastic place. So, I give him credit for coming on.
My favorite part of Dodger Stadium is the sound system that they have there. When you're at a game, you almost feel like you're at a concert. The whole thing is vibrating. The music is playing.
Some people might think it's a little loud, but I'm glad that you enjoy it.
I think it's fun. I want to ask you a few questions about Bryce Harper and the Nationals, but first we are going to welcome in Ian. He's from Boston, and he's on the fan line with a Red Sox question. So, Ian, welcome to our show.
Do you hear me?
We do. How are you?
Good. How are you guys? So I was just wondering, I'm sure you guys saw Jackie Bradley's catch that happened, I think it was about a week ago. And I was just curious, as a Red Sox fan, where you guys think JBJ's catch, I saw it was a 42% catch probability, which is total BS. But where you guys think that was ranked on the best of all time?
John, take it.
Well, I would say that the Chavez catch by the Mets player in the postseason, I can't remember who hit it, whether it was Roland or I think it was Roland, but I don't know. That's the greatest catch I've ever seen because it was in a playoff game. He yanked it from over the wall at a dead run. So to me, Andy Chavez's catch in the 2006 playoffs is the best one I've ever seen. In terms of overall play in center field, I would say Jackie Bradley is as good as anybody I've ever seen play. He is absolutely fantastic. We're in a period right now where there are some really terrific center fielders. Kiermaier, Pilar, Mike Trout, all fantastic. I think Jackie Bradley Jr. to me is the best overall. In terms of the one catch, though, I'm going to go with Andy Chavez.
I remember, I loved also after Jackie made that catch and folks were asking him after, was that the best catch you've ever made? He was like, I need to see a highlight reel. I don't know. It's like, you guys just put together like 5 or 6 of my best catches and I'll tell you which one I think is best. But when I was working for the Red Sox team, I forgot who I was talking to about JBJ, but they were saying it's almost like he has a GPS in his glove. He knows exactly where the ball's going and he knows how to maneuver that outfield. And he's incredible out there. He's made some really fun catches to watch. We have our next guest who is ready to go, and it's Miguel Montero. So Miguel, please join us here. Obviously, we are thrilled to have you think he's going to pop on any second. Former Cubs, Diamondbacks catcher. There he is.
Hi, how are you?
He's a technological genius, I'm telling you. I put him in touch with Cam. 5 seconds later, Cam said, Miguel's fine. He's perfect.
Yeah.
You never had that. You have the record. I don't know. Are you did you major in technology or something? I don't know.
I'm pretty good at it though. I got kids and they keep me on the iPhone.
Very good. I'm very impressed because I am not good.
Days. Miguel, how special was that 2016 Cubs team? What was it like being a part of that?
It was fun. It was obviously, when you're winning, everything is nice. Excuse me. Winning is pretty, and it was a good time. I mean, we never expect to lose any game, and there was times where we needed to lose a game, and then not that we needed to lose, it happened. You're gonna lose a game, but when we lost a game, we were like, well, it's okay. We start another streak tomorrow. And then, sure enough, we started another one for another 8-game winning streak. It was just crazy how things work out. It was it meant to be, I guess. It was we played good. We scored a lot of runs. We came from behind a lot of times, and it was special.
I was with you every step of the way in those playoffs, and I think, if I recall, you had 2 hits, but they were the 2 biggest hits that anybody had, probably. So I was going to ask you to recall what you remember about the 2 hits. The grand slam off of Joe Bland in Game 1 of the LCS, and then in Game 7, you had the hit off of, I believe it was Brian Shaw, that made it 8-6, which was the event. Eventually, that was the winning margin, that last run. So, what do you remember about those 2 hits in particular, and which one do you think was the biggest one of your career?
Well, the Grand Slam was kind of, I mean, I don't know. It was just already it happened. But, I would say the most impressive thing was, like, I honestly didn't know if I was going to make the roster because, like, 2 days prior to that, my back locked up playing against the Giants. And my back locked up really bad, so I couldn't even walk. So I remember on that day, on Friday, I went to the doctor and I had 2 epidurals. So the same day I went to the field, I'm like, I can't even walk, but you know what? Like, if you have to play, I play, sure enough, I had to come as a pinch hitter. I mean, I spent probably the first 5-6 innings in the hot tub. And then, when I knew it was kind of time to kind of get out, start getting loose because maybe a possibility of pinch hitting, I got out, put my uniform on. I went in the cage and took a couple swings. It felt like it was a little bit, still, hurt a lot. But then, to be honest, when I stepped on the box, I didn't really felt anything on those swings because I guess the adrenaline, the fans, it was just so loud. And, that was probably the most exciting hit in my career. And then in the World Series, the Game 7, it was just it was kind of not an easy hit, but I faced the guy and I caught the guy with the Diamondbacks. So I guess sometimes they don't read the news sometimes, and they don't get the scouting report because he struck me out like a day before that or 2 days before that. And I say to the media, I'm like, he's going to strike me out 100 times if he keep throwing the slider because I'm just looking for the cutter. Sure enough, he threw me a cutter and I got a hit off him. I mean, like, he didn't read the memo. He didn't read the memo. So, but it was they're all pretty special. But definitely I would call the Grand Slam was even better because it just tied up the game in the top of the 8th against Chapman. And then, but, and that story comes a lot of things to do because I remember they called me to go on deck. And I remember Joe telling me that he didn't want me to hit. He want Dave Roberts to bring the lefty so he can bring Contreras to hit for me. So I'm like, oh, so I'm just going to stand here? He's like, yeah, you're going to stand here. So you're not going to hit. And then I'm like, I'm going to burn you. Pretty much. He told me I'm going to burn you. So I'm like, all right. They walk Coughlin to load the bases, and then I walk to the plate, and I announce my name. I was expected to Dave Roberts bring the lefty that he was warming up, and he didn't. And at that point, I was like, so what am I doing now? Like, he didn't bring the lefty. Am I hitting? I mean, like, what's going on here? So he's like, well, you're hitting now. I'm like, okay, cool. Like,
yeah, I
hit too.
know you mentioned. I'm sorry, you mentioned they walk Coughlin. And I remember your quotes afterward. They must not read the papers. They must not read my stats about loading the bases. You shouldn't load the bases against me. What do you recall about that? We always appreciate your honesty. You're fantastic in the clubhouse. Is that true? We're just very good with the bases
Well, they don't
loaded.
say the same. They say they don't. Not everybody say the same. They say I'm not a good teammate.
No.
I don't know what.
No, it's great.
I know I'm not. So I really didn't care about those.
Yeah, they were great comments. I thought it was fantastic what you said.
Yeah. Where did this blunt honesty come from? Is that just your personality, how you've always been? Just say it like it is?
That's how I am, honestly. Like, I'm so, because you know what? My goal is to be honest to them. I want them to actually help them. But if you're not doing it right, I'm going to tell you doing it right. You're not going to get any better. But if I tell you you're not doing it right, I tell you straight up, I'm like, I just want to help you. Don't take it the wrong way. Don't take it like I'm actually, like criticizing you. No, I'm actually want you to get better. That's why I'm honest to you. And I expect people be honest to me as well and say, like when they say, you know what, I'm not playing because I'm not playing good now. And I get it. I understand and I agree with that. But don't tell me I'm playing good, but I'm not going to play or like things like that. That is like, I want people to be honest. And, sometimes the truth hurts. And it's tough. But I much rather be known for the guy that always told you the truth than the guy that lied to you, looking at your eyes and be lying.
Well, we appreciate that. You were always very, very honest and had great comments. And I think in those playoffs, I think at one point you said we better wake up or we better start doing something better. And the team responded. So I think that actually helped spur the team on. I think it's valuable. I think Jenny did it. It's a great word, is blunt. I mean, somebody asks you and you'll give your honest opinion. And it seemed to me that they were kind of harsh at the end. They asked you about that last game with Arrieta, and they had 7 stolen bases on you, and you gave your honest opinion. And it seemed unfair.
But John, you know what? The problem on that, John, is that, and I get it. I understand, like, these things that it needs to stay in the clubhouse. But not everybody speaks the truth, and what hurt me the most was then I've been pushing hard since spring training to help the guys. Like, hey, guys, we need to work on our slice step. I talked to pitching coaches. I talked to everybody in the clubhouse. I even talked to Jake, and I said to Jake, I'm like, Jake, probably a week before that, say, Jake, can you give me a chance to throw a guy? I know I don't have the same arm. I get that. But if you give me a little chance, I probably get be a little quicker. And he respond to me that he's like, well, I don't care if they steal the bases, blah, 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 blah. I say, well, you don't care, but the stolen bases go on me. So people are going to criticize me because I'm not throwing anybody out. So because you don't care, let's do this. I actually proposed him this. I'm like, let's do this. So you're going to have a runner on third base. And I'm not going to block the ball, so the run is going to score. But guess what? I don't care because that's not my ERA. He said, well, it's a great point, but what? It's the same, So that's why when that happened, he didn't mind it. And I was, he and we were in my room after the game talking because, I know what I say. And he knew what I say because I told him too. I'm like, man, like, it's just terrible. It's just hard. Because, yeah, you count all the stolen bases, but all the throws, maybe I make 2 of those good throws that I did make two good throws, I can recall that. And the guys were saved by a mile. So where do you put all that? People don't even see the good throws, the bad throw. They see the caught stealing and the stolen bases. So that's the reality. So he's like, okay, well, like, you haven't thrown anybody out? Well, yeah, I know that. But guess what? If the pitching staff would be doing a better job, Wilson Contreras would have thrown the 40-45% of the guys out. And he only threw 60%.
He's fantastic arm. And, well, unbelievable. He's an incredible, incredible talent. And overall, you did great work with Jake. I mean, look at how Jake transformed into a Cy Young pitcher, and you were his personal catcher. And I think you did a great job with him overall. And I do want to ask you, after winning that championship, how great was it? Chicago is a city that likes to celebrate anyway. I went to school in Chicago. I mean, there's a bar on every block. How was it? And, I mean, how did everyone get through that okay with their health?
Well, man, it was – you know what? It was I don't think we celebrate as much as we wanted to celebrate because the game, you know, it got delayed. So we ended up landing in Chicago about 6 a.m. Everybody's so tired. So, you know, when you go home and you sleep, the next day you be like, okay, you know, you don't feel like party as much as you wanted it to party that night. So, but overall it was great because, you know, we ended up doing something and, you know, the parade and, I mean, it didn't have to be like a parade to be partying in Chicago, though. That city is great. Like anywhere you go in Chicago, it's the greatest places. Like even you go with your family, you go with anybody, and you have a great time because that's a great city. I mean, honestly, it's probably the great cities I ever been.
I second that too for the second city. It is absolutely fabulous.
Yes, he's definitely.
I know you're obviously from Venezuela. Do you get much of an opportunity to go back there? Or are you totally stay?
No, Venezuela is in bad shape right now. Can't even go in there. I mean, like, it's a lot of things happening. Scary things are happening down there. So I wouldn't risk myself going there, and I wouldn't risk my family to go with me there because it's too dangerous. So I much rather pay my family their ticket to come visit me here in Arizona.
Yeah, I know you and your wife became U.S. citizens, so congratulations for that. What you're so good and so honest and so refreshing. I mean, when I think of you, I think of maybe broadcaster, but I don't know. I've heard some people speculate you are very good with technology, a very smart fellow. Maybe you could be an agent sometime. I don't know. Do you have any plans in mind what you want to do?
You know,
I've heard that.
You threw that out there.
Is that what
you threw that out there?
Talent scout. I think you should be a broadcaster, but okay.
Yeah, but you know what? I wanted to help players some way, somehow, and I feel like if I can be in this side, you know, I went through arbitrations. I went negotiate my own deals with the Diamondbacks, and you know, it's I feel like I could help players not only.
I bet he comes back in a second.
Yeah, I'm back.
Got it.
Can you see me now?
Yes, you're perfect.
Okay, so not only and the money or negotiation wise, I feel like I could help. Oh my God! Sorry.
You're okay.
Things that happen on the field, and you know, because when you have an agent and you go just lumping a little bit, you know what an agent tell you? Like, well, you got to start hitting. Really? Don't you think I know that? You know? Are you been hitting in the cage? Are you hitting extra? I'm like, of course they know that. You know? So why gonna remind him that? So I've been in slumps. I've been in the good times. You know, been more in bad times than good times. So I think I could help in psychology, like their how do we call that? Like, yeah, the psychology is part of the game with them.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the things that I like a lot, and I can, you know, I can help. It's like, well, you know, you're going through a tough time, and let's find out what's happened. Just because it doesn't have to be on the swing, it can be just mental. It can be things that are happening. And as a player, because we're so stubborn, we think it's my swing. No, it's not your swing. It's other things, and I feel like I could help him and you know, guide him the right direction and educate him a little bit, especially like the Latin guys. I want to educate him a little bit because honestly, all these things that I see him happen with all these Latin guys getting caught with steroids and all that, I want to give him the benefit of the doubt. Believe it or not, I do, because it's not way they're so dumb to be getting caught all the time. So they probably get the wrong advice.
Mm-hmm. So what about coaching? You wouldn't think about coaching? You want to go more towards the agent way?
I like the agent part.
The money.
Yeah, the money. I got my own schedule.
Yeah.
Yeah, coaching is tough.
Coaching are tough, though. Coaching has to be here at 12 every day.
Right.
And, you know, but I want, like, I won't say I won't coach because you never know. I mean, like maybe eventually I wanted to go back in the field and just some way coaching or body practice, throw it or whatever, you know. But right now, I like the idea that as a agent.
All right. Well, I think you have a future in
I
broadcast.
can represent you, John.
There you go.
Can be my first client, though.
That would be fun. That would be fun. All right, Miguel, thank you so much. We're going to let you go. We'll be happy to have you back on here on Inside Baseball anytime. Work on your broadcasting skills. You've got it down already.
Yeah,
though.
I got to keep working on it.
You are always
good. You're good.
Jenny,
Good.
take care.
Have a good one. He's a hoot.
He is a character. There's no question about it. And you're absolutely right. You have picked the exact word. He is a very blunt guy. And, you know, sometimes some people might take offense to that because they're used to people kind of, you know, being very diplomatic and using euphemisms. And he's a very honest, blunt guy. And I think he'd be great in broadcasting, but he obviously has his heart set on being an agent. So
I agree. And like you said, I think it's very common for anyone in the public eye to keep some of their thoughts and opinions to themselves or keep it inside the clubhouse. So it is different to hear his perspective and just say, hey, like this is who I am. This is what I believe. This is how it is. So I'm just going to say it. It doesn't happen often. And I think that people get thrown off by that.
We in the media, even though we apparently have an MV rating of 8%, according to Scott, 8%, we much appreciate someone who's as honest as Miguel Montero.
Yeah, he was fantastic. Now, a question that I want to ask you about is the situation going on with Roberto Osuna. And obviously, I think some people were surprised by the trade that went on, the fact that the Astros would want a player like him that's obviously dealing with the situation that he's dealing with that 75-game suspension that was put down on him for allegedly abusing his girlfriend. Are you surprised that the Astros made this move? And if so, why?
I'm shocked. Well, they won the World Series last year. They have a fabulous team. We did think they have an issue at closer. There were other guys out there and other guys who were traded. They had made a trade with the Orioles last year for Zach Britton, but they didn't seem to go in that direction again. Maybe they figured the Orioles weren't really going to go through with things again, but obviously they did go through with things. I'm stunned that he was traded at this point. I give Toronto a world of credit for being able to do that and to get 3 arms back, including Ken Giles, very talented pitcher. Now, obviously, he had a blow up himself on the mound and had a disagreement there in Houston, and wasn't a shock that he was traded, but he does not have that sort of issue hanging over his head that Roberto Osuna does. And now, obviously, Osuna is a very talented guy. I could see why a team would want him, but to trade for him now, especially when you say that you have a zero-tolerance policy, it seems odd to have a zero-tolerance policy for guys that you employ, but for other guys, you don't have that zero-tolerance policy. So, I think zero tolerance is impossible anyway, so I find that phrase odd, but to me, you can't say you have zero tolerance if you took him in trade, and to me, it's just a risk not worth taking. It's very bad for public relations. There's a question in the clubhouse. I think they're going to be able to deal with it. They have a terrific clubhouse, Justin Verlander in there, Dallas Keuchel in there. They have some great leaders, obviously Springer, Altuve. They have a fantastic team, and I think they probably will get through this from the clubhouse standpoint. The bigger question is the public relations hit, and to me, it just was not worth it in this case.
And the most recent news that came out about that, too, is when the Astros did end up getting him, they came out with a statement that they said, we believe he's remorseful. And then his attorney comes out and says his client isn't remorseful. So even having to deal with that, I feel like is a nightmare. And I mean, you want the talent on your team, but at what cost?
Yeah, absolutely. Very good point there. And I understand it sounds terrible what the lawyer said, but if you pleaded not guilty, you really can't say you're remorseful. You're basically admitting guilt at that point. He did agree to the 75-game suspension that baseball handed down, so we know that something went on. Whether it's criminal or not, that has not been proven yet. That's fair to say. And the case will be adjudicated in Canada and we will find out more later. That's another issue that they have going on because we don't know exactly what the result of that is going to be. It could go either way, obviously. But for now, he has to say that he's not guilty criminally. And I understand the lawyer saying that. I know a lot of people got on the lawyer, but what are you going to say? You can't say he's remorseful because he did it when he's got a court case hanging over his head.
And that next court date is on September 5th. They're hoping to figure things out before that. But he can officially return on Sunday. The Astros are going to be on the road on Friday with the Dodgers. So after that, he can pitch for the Astros for the rest of the season and for the playoffs because that's the ruling that it has. So we'll see how that all plays out. We have another fan. Robbie from Vermont wants to join us on the fan line. He has a Yankees-Red Sox question for us. So, Robbie, welcome to Inside Baseball. Robbie. Hey.
So I was just wondering your take on the Brian Cashman comments earlier this week, pretty much saying that the Yankees had the Red Sox number.
Is that what he said, that they have their number?
I
know what he said was the other teams we need help from the other teams. They obviously are able to beat all the other teams while we are able to beat them. I didn't know he said we have their number. If he said we had their number, I wouldn't agree with that. They don't have their number. They do better against the Red Sox than every other team seems to do. And he's probably hoping that somebody else can beat the Red Sox. But I will say this, the Red Sox have clearly been the best team. I don't think there's any arguing that. There should be no dispute of that. They were 5.5 games up going into tonight. That's a lot of games. When you consider the Yankees are 30 games over, to be 5.5 games behind at this stage, that's pretty amazing. So you got to give Boston credit. And I think he's just probably upset that nobody else can even touch them.
Yeah, I don't think you can complain when you can barely beat Baltimore. So
that's a fair point. They have the Yankees have struggled with Baltimore, and frankly, in that last game against the Orioles, their effort wasn't very good either. As Phil Nevin pointed out on the bench later, it looked like they were kind of sleepwalking through it. I think Michael Kay, the announcer, said something like, "It looks like they're playing underwater." It was a little wet, but I kind of agree with them. They looked like they were kind of edging through swampland the way they were playing, not covering bases, not hustling. It was a pretty poor performance. You got to take care of the games that you're supposed to win, and you've got to give Boston credit. The Yankees were famous for that, or have been famous for that for decades. Three teams, at least three teams, never win at Yankee Stadium: Minnesota, Cleveland, and the White Sox. I was a Yankee fan growing up. Even when I was 8 years old, I can remember those three teams could never beat the Yankees, and that has basically held true through to 2018, and that's a long time.
Now the
about 50 years.
Yankees are about to blow a 4-0 lead to the Red Sox. So,
oh boy.
Well, you know what? The Red Sox have a special thing going. If I was going to I don't have that vote. I have the NL MVP vote, but the AL MVP vote, without looking at the stats, I wouldn't argue too strongly if someone put 3 Red Sox in the spots of 1, 2, and 3 with Betts, Martinez, and Sale as the top 3 MVPs. And when you have 3 of the top 5 MVPs, I think the 2 guys in Cleveland are doing great too, Lindor and Jose Ramirez. But you could easily have the top 3 MVPs. That's a pretty special season they have going.
Yeah, let's just see if they can get out of the first round this year.
I understand. I'm sure they're quite frustrated that they've made a couple of early exits. But keep in mind, they have won 3 World Series since 2004. Counting 2004, Yankees have only won 1 in that period. So they're doing okay for themselves over the last 15 years.
I'm trying to find that exact quote because I did see something about.
I didn't hear it quite like that, but I didn't, not being a Red Sox fan, I didn't pay that close attention to it. But he obviously pays a lot of attention. He even knew that the Yankees had struggled against Baltimore. So I have to give him credit for that. And I will defer to him on that one. Maybe Cashman went a little too far with that comment.
Yeah, there's articles. Brian Cashman thinks the Yankees have the Red Sox number. So there's definitely.
Or is that the headline? Headline writers, sometimes paraphrase.
That is. Oh, here's the quote. Okay. You wonder You wonder what their record would be if they weren't playing us, Cashman said. Because we had to go head-to-head. We do some damage against them, and it doesn't seem like anyone else is capable. So
we do some damage. It's not we have their number, I don't think. It's close. I understand where he would get that and where the headline writer might say that. And that's certainly a good headline. And it's close enough that you could put that, but he didn't directly say we have their number. So he didn't quite do that. The best quote ever along those lines was Pedro saying that they're my daddy. So you can't top that one. And he's the best. I work with him. He's incredible. Amazing with words in a second language. I don't know how he does it.
Watching those broadcasts too, postseason and everything. I mean, he is the best. Like, how could you not love him? It's pretty
impossible. An incredible charisma. He's as a pitcher, he's 1,000 out of 1,000, and charisma, he's also 1,000 out of 1,000. So I give him all the credit in the world for that.
Let's see. We have a question from Jake. He said, "Can the Yankees go back in time and trade Sonny Gray?"
Well, you know what? They're not going to be able to trade Sonny Gray because he's not going to be able to clear waivers unless there is that slight chance that the team that claims him will want him and the Yankees will be able to work out a deal. There was talk, and we heard the Braves were scouting. The Brewers made sense. His pitching coach from Vanderbilt is the pitching coach of the Brewers now, coincidentally enough. To me, they were the team that made the most sense. The Yankee people are obviously of the opinion now that New York is an issue for Sonny Gray. And once that's out there, it makes it very difficult. And I do think he's a talented pitcher. And, looking back on it, I gave the Yankees a big win. They would have got an even bigger win if they figured out how to trade Sonny Gray and get somebody comparable back to take his place because they believe that New York is an issue for him, and that's the problem.
One of the teams that you had as one of your small winners was the Braves. They really were able to really enhance their offense or rotation without giving up much. So why were you impressed with what they were able to accomplish over the last month?
Yeah, well, they added an outfielder, Duvall, who helps their offense, but he was hitting 205 this year. I think it's 685 OPS, so he's not having a great year. Gausman is a guy with a lot of talent who really hasn't delivered toward that talent to this point. So, I think everybody would love to have Gausman. He's a terrific ability, as I said, but he has not reached his potential yet. So that's why they were the small winner. They did not give up any of their top probably 10 prospects. They have an amazing prospect list. So maybe I should have given them even more credit because they were able to do those two deals without that. But as I said, Gausman really not fulfilled his potential, and Duvall is not having the year that he's had previously. He was an all-star a couple of years ago. This year, not an all-star, clearly.
One of your other small winners was the Nationals. Did you really at any point think that Harper was going anywhere?
I did not. You can check my tweets if you like. I'm not rewriting history.
I follow them.
Major long shot from the beginning. There were one or two people who thought that they were going to trade him. And the funny thing was that the stories came out that they were thinking about it after they'd already told him that they decided to keep him. That happens sometimes. We're a little behind. They did consider it when teams called. I think it was reported the Indians called. There were probably several teams that called them. And, the way things are going there, obviously the ownership is quite unhappy with the team at this point. They have not performed to capabilities. They're probably one of the three biggest disappointments in baseball, along with the rival Mets and the Twins. Someone else might be able to come up with another. But to me, those are the three biggest disappointments. And Washington obviously was thinking about shaking things up, and they ended up shaking things up because they cut a very good reliever in Sean Kelly, and they traded another good one in Brandon Kinsler for a minor leaguer when they're still, we think, going for it. They didn't really do a real sale, and they didn't even get below the luxury tax. They just seem to be kind of annoyed with these two guys, and they sent them on their way and sent a message. And they played well. They won 25-4 over the Mets. That may have more to do with the Mets than them, but they played well since they did that. But it was very interesting to see what they did do. I didn't think it was a long shot they would trade Harper, though.
Were you surprised by that move? There's all the stories coming out about the snitch inside and all this drama that's going on in the clubhouse.
Yeah, well, I think there was drama in the clubhouse because if you cut a guy who's got a whip under one and you trade another guy who's pitching well, for a minor leaguer when you're still going for it. I'm believing the stories that there was something going on in the clubhouse. And I think what was going on is that there were some relievers, rightly or not, who felt that they weren't being used properly. That goes on with a lot of teams. We have a rookie manager, Davey Martinez, terrific guy, but he's not that experienced. And he was getting a lot of criticism probably from his own players. Now, one of the stories that came out was supposedly Jeff Passan from Yahoo wrote, quoted unnamed Nats person saying that things weren't right in the clubhouse right now. And somehow somebody fingered Brandon Kinsler, and apparently he never knew. He didn't even know Jeff Passan. He said, "Who's Jeff Passan?" basically. And Jeff went to trouble after the Cubs had acquired him to call Theo Epstein and say, "Hey, I don't know Brandon Kinsler. It wasn't him." And I believe him, because if you look at the story, I would assume and think that it was somebody in the front office or somebody else connected to the Nats, not one of their players. Jeff is sitting there in Kansas City. I think it's funny. And Mike Rizzo is such a smart guy. Those people are so smart. They're not good at guessing who tells people what. And I think that Brandon Kinsler was incorrectly fingered for that. But you know what? He probably was complaining behind the scenes about the way he was being used. So Nats probably weren't that unhappy to trade him and send a message. But that's different than leaking to somebody that things are terrible around here, which is something he didn't do.
Yeah, and Rizzo came out, and I don't know if he was trying to dismantle the whole rumor situation, but he said, "We want players who care about the name on the front of their jersey more than the name on their back of their jersey. That's a demand that I will make of them. If we don't get that, then we'll have an issue." Basically, everyone's just assuming that that's about Brandon, but we don't know.
There was some problem he had with Brandon. Whether he was right to have this problem or not, I couldn't tell you. But I could tell you, I think there's almost no chance, and I'm going to say no chance, I'm not Jeff Passan, but I don't believe that Brandon Kinsler was the one who gave him those quotes. I don't believe it at all. Kinsler, I think, told Rizzo, it was too late. He'd already been traded, but he told him, "Give me a lie detector test." He said, "It wasn't me." And I believe him. I don't see any connection. Jeff's in Kansas City. Brandon has played for Milwaukee and Minnesota. He's a player on their team. I can't imagine he would have it's possible that he has his text number. But I think teams are just very bad at guessing who says what. They may have been mad at him for being critical of Davey Martinez. I think that Rizzo sticks up for his guys. Look how he stuck up for Bryce Harper when there were stories out there, unnamed quotes that were negative, and he's sticking up for Davey Martinez here, who's his manager. I think he didn't want to fire Dusty Baker in the first place, but now that he has Davey Martinez, he's going to stick up for him, and I do admire that. I do think that is the correct thing to do, but I think it was him or whoever in Washington thought it was Kinsler. I think they batted zero on that one.
And am I right in saying that Rizzo, too, was the first one to really shut down the Harper rumors, to say, like, no, we're keeping him, he's the guy. So clearly there's,
I got a text from him saying that he loved him, so I didn't know what to make of that. But then I saw he told Chelsea Janes from the Washington Post he's not going anywhere. So I had followed up, but he hadn't responded to me. Then I did again. Can I assume that's correct? And he said, yes, he's not going anywhere. I think it had been shut down the night before. We were just behind that story that came out. I think Mark Feinstein wrote it. I don't blame him. He came up with a story which I think was accurate. It might have just been a few hours old, which was that maybe they'd consider it trading Harper. But I think by that point, I think it had been shut down, and they realized they couldn't get very much for him. I mean, not compared to being 5.5 games out and chasing two upstart teams, they have a clear chance to win that division. No matter how terrible they played, it would have been ridiculous, in my opinion, to trade him, and you probably would have been giving up any opportunity you would think you might have of re-signing him. Obviously it would be a major shakeup more than middle relievers, and maybe that would help something or someone. I don't know, but to me it seemed like a very, very bad idea to trade Bryce Harper when you have a chance to win. Nonsensical, really.
Yeah, well, and they didn't. We got a question from Jose Gonzalez on the app. He said, since the trade deadline has passed, do you see any big waiver deals like last year's Justin Verlander move happening?
Well, that was a big one. I think that determined the world champion team. So there are a lot of players who can get through waivers. I mean, obviously smaller ones like Mesoraco, medium ones like Irvin Santana. I mean, we got to see which teams are in or out. I think that, Adrian Beltre will be able to pass through waivers. Shin-Soo Choo can pass through waivers. There are a fair number of players whose names we heard out there whose contracts are high enough where they're going to pass through waivers. So I think we're going to see some big deals, but to me, Justin Verlander decided a season. So I don't know that we're going to see a trade of that ilk.
Another question that we got on the app, who do you think might be a big name on the trade deadline market in 2019?
2019. Okay. Now we're talking a year. We're a year away. I'm not even up to the free agency for this year, so I don't know about that one. That's too far in advance. I'm not a very good planner, as my wife could tell you. I'm not a very good planner as to who will be on the trade market a year from now. I'm sorry, I can't.
That's fine. They'll understand. Don't worry. It's okay. Let's go back to another team that you have as far as, and I think we're finishing up here, but a question about the Brewers. So obviously they did make some moves. You have them as a small winner on your list. They have Scope, Moustakas, Soria. So overall, how do you think that they fared?
Well, they obviously improved their team. They got 3 really good players. The problem is that they needed to get a shortstop, which they really didn't get. I'm assuming, although they haven't revealed it to this point, I think they tried to make Scope feel comfortable and put him at second. To me, if you got to keep Moustakas, Shaw, and Scope on the field, they're not bench players. So Scope's the only one who can play shortstop, those 3. So, I mean, I'm thinking they're going to put Scope at shortstop. So they didn't really get an established shortstop. So still a little question exactly what's going to shake out. They didn't get a catcher. They didn't get a starting pitcher. So the 3 things they actually needed, they didn't get, but they certainly helped a great relief corps. Third base, which was already a strength, is now a double strength. They're much better at second, which was a weakness, obviously. Whether Shaw or my guess is that Shaw will eventually stay at third, and Moustakas will have to go to second because Moustakas was a great high school shortstop. I mean, we're going back 10 years now, but I don't see how Shaw is a second baseman. He was a first baseman with the Red Sox, as you'll recall. They moved him to third base. That doesn't make somebody 6'4", 230 pounds. Moustakas is a big guy too, but he's fairly nimble. I'm thinking it's got to be Scope at short, and we're guessing it's Scope at short, Moustakas at second, and Shaw at third. I could be proven wrong, but there are at least 2 out of 3 of them are out of position, whatever they do.
You mentioned Adrian Beltre. Will Lawrence on the app said, do you think the Cubs actually pursue Adrian Beltre aggressively in the near future or no? Beltre came out saying that, he wants to play for a contender. He's happy in Texas, but he's open to other possibilities.
My understanding is he didn't want to go to Atlanta for whatever reason. I'm hearing dribs and drabs, so I don't know the exact list that he was willing to do. I think he was willing to go back to Boston. He was fantastic in Boston. They have the best team in baseball. Why wouldn't you go to Boston? Of course, you have to go there. So I think he'd want to go to the Cubs, but I think we're going to have to see how Bryant shakes out with the injury and things go on there. But to me, the Cubs are right on the cusp of that luxury tax threshold, just like the Dodgers and the Yankees and the Giants. We got 4 major teams, and to pick up a guy who's making $18 million, even if it's for part of a season, I don't think it's going to be something that's going to work out for them financially.
Well, it's 9:03, which means it is time for us to go.
Correct.
But don't worry, everyone that's watching, we will be back next Thursday at 8 p.m. If you are watching online, please download the FanCred app. You saw a bunch of folks come on and talk to us virtually. You can do that as well. Just come join our conversation. We want to hear from you. And any other questions that you have, tweet us throughout the week. Just make sure you tag myself, John, or FanCred, and we will hopefully answer as many questions as we possibly can. John, I hope you have a great night, a great weekend, and everyone else, we'll see you next Thursday.
See you later.